Is tech responsible for the stock market plunge? Your Android lock pattern is not secure. And why the President of the United States was probably not an Ashley Madison client. Tech News Tonight is next.
This is Twit.
This is Tech News Tonight, episode 408 for Friday, August 21st, 2015. This episode of Tech News Tonight is brought to you by Wealthfront. Wealthfront is a low-cost automated investment service that is the most sophisticated way for you to invest your money. Whether you've got millions or you're just starting out, visit wealthfront.com/TN2 to sign up and get your free personalized investment portfolio. That's wealthfront.com/TN2. Welcome. I am Megan Morrone. Let's get into today's big tech news. On Wall Street today, the Dow Jones plunged over 530 points and more than 1,000 for this week entirely. Today was the worst week since 2011. More than 63% of the technology index components are trading down more than 10% from yearly highs. Global growth may be slowing down, particularly in China. This could be disastrous for tech companies, particularly Apple. Joining us to talk about this is Alex Wilhelm, writer for TechCrunch. Welcome, Alex.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Good to be back.
It is good to have you back. So what happened today?
The market went up for a while, and then today it didn't. And it went down, and everyone collectively lost their minds. I don't know if you guys did this, but CNBC today was essentially popcorn weather. It was incredible. Everyone was just losing their minds as a group on Wall Street. But back in our little world, we saw a major decline in the share prices of a number of tech companies kind of across the board. Apple took a big hit. Twitter closed the day below its IPO price. Netflix was very far down. And so we're seeing a retraction of valuations, if you will, across the tech sector. And that has people nervous, to be clear.
So yeah, more than 63% of the technology index components are trading down more than 10% from yearly highs.
Yeah.
Are the fears about China? That's what I've been reading. Do you agree with that?
Well, China is a very important topic, but not one that's directly linked, but definitely correlated. So we've seen a real decline in the Shanghai Composite Index over the last couple of months. That's spurred a lot of relatively heavy-handed government intervention over there. But I think if you look at companies like Facebook and Microsoft and Apple that are selling into the Chinese market, if the Chinese market does continue to suffer and see retractions and so forth, that could cut consumer and corporate spend. That impacts these kind of American technology conglomerates. But for today, it's more of the whole market getting whacked as opposed to China dragging down the technology sector.
So, and when you talk about a company like Twitter, it's not really a shock. I mean, this isn't the first we've heard that the Twitter stock's just steadily been going down for weeks, maybe months.
Yes. Yeah, it's been incredibly rough. I mean, there was a lot of support at the $30 per share mark for a while, kind of a psychological barrier. And now it's below 26, its IPO price. And when you kind of crest that second threshold, it shows a lot of weakness on the buy side. So Twitter has a lot to prove. But a number of IPOs have had a really tough time. You know, King and Castlight Health and a lot of other firms are down very, very sharply. And I think it may show some weakness in the current technology IPO appetite in the market. And that could delay new offerings, reduce liquidity, and harm private market valuations as well. So it's a very interconnected system, but certainly today was very weak. And if you need to raise money, you should have done it probably 2 months ago and not now. So that was your bad.
So are we looking at like another bubble? Is that, or is this kind of just like a breather? The New York Times is calling it just everybody taking a breather. Is it a bubble or a breather?
The New York Times is, well, they can use whatever word they want. It's certainly a correction to some extent. We'll have to see more data over the coming weeks to see how sharp it will be. But if we see another 500-point drop, say, in the NASDAQ over the next 2 or 3 months, that could certainly change dynamics. Markets do go up and down, blah, blah, blah. But the widespread sell-off we're seeing globally, and especially at home in our sector, I think is meaningful and important to keep an eye on because, again, these systems are interlinked. So the private and public markets have to get along in terms of what things are worth. And if the private market keeps paying more for things than the public markets will, there's a real imbalance there, and it can lead to down IPOs like Box and so forth. But, it's fine. It's going to shake out some of the deadwood, and that's always fun to watch if you're, on our side of the table, which is the non-financially astute and non-money people. So
it's fine. That's not just the Friday night cocktail talking?
No, it's not fine if you own a lot of tech stocks, so you're a VC and approve their returns to LPs. But I mean, when things get a little out of hand, you have to come back to earth. And I think we're seeing, a fair retrenchment of valuations to more reasonable levels. Because, if you track earnings, they haven't been that great this cycle. And so if we're seeing declining revenue growth and so forth, lower valuations are not, a bad thing. They kind of they match or are commensurate to what you would expect from performance.
So with Apple, they rely so much on China. Is this something that, we're about to hear about the new iPhones next month. Is that something that usually turns their stock around when they announce the new phones?
Well, it's always very fun to watch Apple and Microsoft and Google's shares during their developer events and their kind of product unveils along with their earnings calls, because there's a lot of disconnect. So Apple can announce a new iPhone and go down 2 points in a day, which makes, as you can kind of understand, no sense at all. But I don't think we're going to see an Apple rebound on the strength of that unless the new phone is incredibly differentiated. But I think people are expecting an iPhone 6S and a 6 Plus S, which is probably a little more iterative as opposed to revolutionary. So I don't really see that driving new unit volume growth past prior trends we've already seen.
And so it's been about maybe 3 weeks since Windows 10 was released.
Yes.
Did that change their stock at all? Did that move it either way?
Well, Microsoft is down a couple of dollars a share over the last week, kind of tracking the larger market. They haven't really released a lot of new data on the performance of Windows 10 in terms of how many PCs it's on. There's been a number of estimates out in the market, but I would almost say for right now, until there's more hard data, it's kind of a non-factor in the Microsoft context in terms of their share performance. But I mean, if it's weak, that means the PC market is weak, and that impacts Intel and Dell and HP and so forth. So it's a very broad sector, but I think it's still a little too early to tell how Windows 10 is doing in the market.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for joining us. Alex Wilhelm is a writer at TechCrunch. He is @Alex on Twitter. It's always great to get your opinion, especially about things that aren't always as exciting, like, for example, stocks.
Stocks are very, very exciting. You're wrong there, Megan. I have to disagree. But anyways, have a good Friday.
All right, take care, Alex. Coming up, a wearable for your eyeball and how not to create a fun tech work environment. But first, do you have $500? You could either send it to me, and I promise to put it in my electric car fund where it will benefit the environment eventually, or you could invest it with our sponsor. They are Wealthfront. Wealthfront makes it easy for anyone to access world-class, long-term investment managers. You can get started investing today at a minimum of $500. You sign up for an account at wealthfront.com, and in just minutes, it goes right to work, monitoring your portfolios around the clock and taking action as soon as an opportunity arises. Wealthfront automatically rebalances your portfolio and reinvests your dividends, all commission-free. Wealthfront software optimizes your investments for the best risk-adjusted return, net of taxes and fees. Wealthfront is transparent and accessible. You can view all your accounts in one place, in your dashboard, on your desktop, or with their mobile app. Visit wealthfront.com/TN2. You can sign up and get your free personalized investment portfolio. You'll see the customized allocation they recommend for your profile. And just for Twit listeners, if you sign up to invest, Wealthfront will manage your first $15,000 entirely free of charge for life. So if you're like me and you do not think that stocks are really that interesting, you can sign up for Wealthfront and they'll do the work for you. Claim your offer today at wealthfront.com/TN2. For compliance purposes, I have to tell you that Wealthfront Incorporated is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Brokerage services are offered through Wealthfront Brokerage Corporation, member FINRA, and SIPC. This is not a solicitation to buy or sell securities. Investing in securities involves risk, and there is a possibility of losing money. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Please visit wealthfront.com to read their full disclosure. When Netflix announced their new year-long maternity and paternity leave benefits, first I praised them, and then I began to wonder whether these competitive practices were designed to lure highly qualified workers, whether those would trickle down to the average worker. And I wondered aloud on this show whether these benefits would be extended across the board, even down to the people charged with putting those DVDs into all the envelopes. BuzzFeed reports that they are not. A women's advocacy group called Ultraviolet says that Netflix attention-getting announcement failed to mention that the benefits applied to their streaming division and not to their DVD division, which is where most of the employees are paid by the hour. Now, I totally support parental leave, but let's be honest, the people who qualify for many of these Netflix jobs with benefits are not the ones who have to work to support their families. They're often the women and men who choose to go back to work. Many who don't have a choice and who struggle paying for childcare are not getting these benefits. So let's see this as what it is, a way to entice better employees away from other companies. You know those lock patterns that many Android phones use in place of passwords? They're not as secure as you might think. Ars Technica spoke to a researcher who collected and analyzed almost 4,000 Android lock patterns and found that they had enough in common to make them relatively easy to crack. 44% of the patterns started in the top left, most node of the screen. 77% of them started in one of the four corners. Now, most lock patterns moved left to right and top to bottom, and since a significant portion only use 4 nodes, that gives hackers only 1,624 patterns to choose from. If you want to hear more about these findings or get tips on how to use better Android lock patterns, download this morning's episode of Tech News Today. And if you're not already subscribed to Tech News Today, why not? You can subscribe wherever fine podcasts are streamed or downloaded. It's been a few weeks since Google announced their name change and restructuring. We haven't heard much in the interim, but today Sergey Brin took to Google Plus to announce that Google's Life Sciences project has graduated from the X Lab and has now become a standalone Alphabet company with Andy Conrad as CEO. Here's the quick and dirty on Life Sciences. It's a company devoted to making healthcare more proactive, and among other tasks, they've been charged with creating a wearable for your eyeball. The smart contact lens monitors the blood sugar level of diabetics. According to an article in Popular Science, Andy Conrad has been leading the team since 2013. He comes from a health research background and created a new HIV test in 1991. Now, all this week, we've been reporting on the leak of personal details from the adult website ashleymadison.com. Yesterday, a few of you in the chat room pointed out that while Ashley Madison required users to enter an email address to browse the website, Ashley Madison does not verify that address. The Washington Post reports today that thousands of email addresses leaked from the hack come from fake whitehouse.gov addresses with people using names of Presidents Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and Bill Clinton. It looks more and more like this hack was an inside job. It's not that anyone's saying that Ashley Madison could not be hacked by someone without inside information. They clearly weren't using the most secure practices out there, but most companies aren't. The hackers claiming responsibility just seem like disgruntled employees to me anyway. The alleged hackers have claimed online that 90 to 95% of Ashley Madison users were male and that the females they were communicating with were fake profiles. But many men have reported meeting real women who wanted to have affairs on the site. The excitement around this will, of course, die down just as the excitement around the Sony hack died down just in time for the next leak of data online. And finally, we recently told you that the IRS is thinking of taxing the free food that big tech companies offer as perks for their employees. If they take the free food away, how will all those programmers be inspired to keep working? Perhaps Americans will take the lead from China. In order to increase productivity in their workplace, they use cheerleaders. According to Selena Larson from the Daily Dot, some Chinese startups hire attractive women to play games with male employees because those male employees are socially dysfunctional and incapable of getting any work done without constant ego affirmation and recognition from attractive women. Now, I get that China needs to get out of this slump that we talked about earlier, but there must be another way. If you want to read more about this phenomenon, check out Larson's article. She even offers suggestions for startups for non-sexist ways to increase productivity, including free rides to work, nap pods, free daycare, and literally anything besides cheerleaders. And that's it for this edition of Tech News Tonight. We're on Facebook. You can like us to get links to the stories that we talk about, and you can be part of the conversation too. You can also subscribe to the show at twit.tv/TN2. You can write to us at tn2@twit.tv and watch live every weekday at 4 p.m. Pacific. And don't miss our morning news program that I told you to subscribe to earlier. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. That's Tech News Today every weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Megan Morrone. Thanks for watching.
Bandwidth for Tech News Tonight is brought to you by CashFly.com.